Now, possible gun charges. So let's dig into this tonight with former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani, now working in criminal defense. Neama, are we looking at more misdemeanors here, or would this be felonies?
Chance, we're looking at felonies because an indictment is only required for a felony charge. Prosecutors can choose to proceed by preliminary hearing or indictment. Federal prosecutors usually pursue the latter. So we should expect to see Hunter Biden indicted on felony charges before the end of the month.
Wow. Okay. A gun charge to the layperson sounds a lot more serious than a tax violation, which the other charges were. Is that accurate to say?
It is a lot more serious. Hunter Biden is going to be charged with addict in possession. It's a felony. That means it's punishable by more than a year in federal prison, whereas those tax charges were just misdemeanors. Obviously, Hunter Biden got a very good deal. Some people call it a sweetheart deal, but he was getting no time on those tax charges, whereas most judges sentence defendants to some prison time for felony convictions.
Can you explain briefly why it is important that, again, I think he admits now that he was using crack cocaine at the time that he obtained this gun, why that's considered so serious by the feds?
Well, there's certain requirements under federal law to possess a firearm, and there's certain individuals who are ineligible. That includes felons, aliens, and folks who have a substance abuse problem. They're called addicts in possession. So if you have a firearm and you fall into one of these prohibited categories, you can be charged. Now, normally the feds don't charge you unless they catch you for some other offense, but we know that Hunter Biden was investigated for those tax charges, as well as potentially some of his business dealings.
Was the problem here that there is documentary evidence? I mean, the laptop, which was verified by the federal government, it shows him doing drugs. Is it, it wasn't just hearsay? Is that the issue?
Well, it's a very strong case. Hunter Biden was discharged from the Army for drug use. And, here's someone who lied on federal form. So as far as the merits are concerned, it's a very strong case. It's an easily provable case. Now, he got a very good deal in being offered diversion. It's really unheard of in federal court. It happens a lot in state court. But the fact that Hunter Biden's lawyers blew up the deal, they got a little bit too greedy. Now he's going to find himself in a much worse situation.
I see, Neama. Okay, speaking of his lawyers, DOJ in this filing today, it's just 3 pages. It reiterates there was no final agreement. It calls it, quote, an unexecuted draft of a pretrial diversion agreement related to the firearm information. And then for their part, Hunter Biden's attorneys say he's abiding by that agreement that doesn't technically exist. It doesn't seem like. Why would he be doing that?
Well, because Hunter Biden's lawyers know they messed up. They got greedy. They asked for too much. They asked for the agreement to cover all federal investigations. And this is before David Weiss was special counsel, so he couldn't do that. And of course, they wanted the judge to oversee the diversion agreement, which is also inappropriate. It's a separation of powers issue. An Article 3 judge, a district judge, can't oversee an agreement not to prosecute between the defendant and the executive branch, which is the Department of Justice or U.S. Attorney's Office. So they asked for too much. They unwound the agreement. So now that their client is looking at more serious felony charges, they're trying to go back, but it's too late.
Wow, Neama, I thought you might come on here and say, well, he's abiding by that. It might be reinstated in some form. If that's not the case, what are the odds now that Hunter Biden, the first son, goes to prison?
It's possible. Now, of course, the defense is going to argue that he's abiding by the agreement, but the government is saying it's an unsigned agreement, wasn't signed by probation. And, the fact that you wanted the judge to oversee it, there was no meeting of the minds. And that was clear at that plea agreement hearing. Of course, we'll see what happens. But if indeed Hunter Biden's lawyers are unsuccessful, they can't get that original agreement enforced, I think it's a strong case against Hunter Biden. And it's really up to the judge to decide whether she's going to give him some prison time or cut him a break and give him probation.
Jury wouldn't do that? The judge would do that?
Yeah, when it comes to sentencing, that's entirely within the province of the judge. The jury would decide guilt or innocence, but in the federal system, it's up to a judge to decide what the appropriate sentence is.
Okay. Finally, then, looking to the future, prosecutors told a judge previously when they were in that courtroom and she was probing that they actually could bring more charges in the future, like Hunter Biden serving as an undeclared foreign agent, that FARA violation. Do you think more charges than even the guns could be coming?
Potentially, yes. Now that David Weiss is special counsel, he can investigate cases in DC, in California. He has jurisdiction in the entire country. I'm not saying he's necessarily going to do so, but Hunter Biden has serious exposure here. That's why I was so surprised that his lawyers blew up the deal. It was an amazing deal. Anyone who's practiced in federal court know that these no-time misdemeanors and diversion offers are unheard of. So if they can't get back there, then Hunter Biden may potentially be looking at felony convictions and even prison time.
Ooh, and I know you're a lawyer, not a politician, but what impact, if any, does this have on President Biden and his, 2024, next November is another election?
Yeah, well, on one hand, I think it supports the position that no one is above the law. Doesn't matter if you're a former president, doesn't matter if you're the president's son, but we're going to see some very politically charged prosecutions. And the question is, regardless of whether he wins or loses, is Joe Biden going to pardon his son if he's looking at real time? I know he said he wasn't, but it's a very different proposition if your son is going to federal prison.
I hadn't even heard that brought up before, but yeah, for now he says, I'm staying far, far away. Neama Rahmani, really good information. Thanks.
Thanks for having me as always.